What do you get when you combine simplified practice marketing, proven ROI strategy, and Van Skate shoes? You get Mark Thackeray, of course. So lace up, grab your green smoothie, and get ready, because this is Dental Marketing Secrets. And this is Mark.
All right, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets podcast, where we provide actionable tips and tricks that you can take and apply immediately to grow your practice, to serve more patients, and ultimately leave a greater impact on the world, because that is what it's all about, my friends. My name is Mark Thackeray, and I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. As I record this, it's in the morning as I record this, so good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. Thanks for joining us on the Dental Marketing Secrets podcast. And I've got a really cool topic for today. We're going to be diving into social media content strategies, specifically 3 keys to killer content, how to dramatically upgrade your social media game. Because I know this is one of the biggest complaints, challenges, topics of discussion that I get from practices all over is, how in the world do I keep this up? How do I create content that works? There's just so many questions surrounding social media, and so I get that. So we're going to talk about that today. And what's cool is I put together a free download, a cheat sheet, if you will, that goes over these 3 keys and provides tons of examples. And so I'll do my best to describe them as we go through this podcast, but you really have to download the guide to see them and see what I'm talking about, and there'll be great resources. So I'll give you that link at the end of the show, and it'll be up on the show notes for this podcast episode, as well as on our Facebook page. So go there to download that. But so first, let's talk a little bit about the objective, really. So my goal with this podcast, with this particular episode, is to help you stop wasting time creating posts that generate nothing but crickets, and start creating content that builds connection, that builds trust, and that increases engagement. Okay, so my philosophy towards this, you guys, is that I believe that when you show up authentically and when you show up openly, you're very open about it, you will attract more and more of your ideal patients, because they're going to see you as who you are. That's going to resonate with them, your true personality, your unique approach, your personal values, everything that makes you you. If you show up like that on social media, it's going to help you accomplish you're going to so many things, you guys. It's going to, like I said, you're going to build more trust with patients. It's going to allow you to serve your audience at the greatest level possible, because you're going to attract those people that you're naturally a good fit for. And what's cool is when you do this right, it's also going to repel some of those people that aren't a great fit for you. You know what I'm saying? You know those patients that come in and you just know deep down in the pit of your stomach when you're talking to them that they're not going to be the ideal patient for whatever reason. But for some reason you feel obligated to help them and to serve them. They've come to your office or they've called you on the phone, and you feel like, oh, I can help them, but I know it's going to be a headache. I know it's going to be stressful. You know those patients. This will help you weed those people out, because it's gonna attract more of those people that you are naturally a good fit for. Okay, but let's start off with let's start off with the challenges, okay, of social media. Let's talk about the struggle, because it's real. It is so real. Oh my goodness, because I know that there are so many things that you're already trying to do. Your to-do list is growing at a rapid rate. You're constantly running from one thing to the next. And so social media often gets pushed to the back burner. It gets pushed to the end of the day. It gets pushed, to someone who maybe isn't always the right fit for that. There's a myriad of reasons why social media gets kicked to the curb, and I totally get that. So that's one of the challenges. But what does that result in? A lot of times that will result in posts that get thrown together last minute. They haven't really been well thought out or well conceived. They're just, hey, I feel the need to get something up there. So wow, you spew something together, you spew something out, and then post that on social media. And then you're done. You kind of check the box and go on to the next task. Another challenge is that people just run out of ideas, that after a while you just don't know what else to post. You know what I'm saying? You've gone through, hey, this is our team member, this is our hygienist, here's another picture of the doctor. Okay, well, now what? And so, that's one of the challenges that comes up quite a bit. Another one is, as I see a lot, is people just start copying the other dentist down the street and have zero results to show for it. That's typically what happens, is that they'll see, oh, this person's, posting on wisdom teeth or whatever the case may be, and they'll copy that and nothing. Like I said, you get crickets. There's no response. There's zero engagement. So that's a challenge. And then another one is no one will take ownership. Okay, this is something that occurs quite frequently because people, for all these other reasons that we just talked about, right? I mean, it's a combination of those where they maybe don't have the time, they're out of ideas already, they're already just struggling. It's hard to get the team involved to create the post and to get approval and then to post it. Maybe they're not as adept on social media at posting and scheduling and all that stuff. So those are just a few of the obstacles. I know there's quite a few more out there, but I just wanted to share these more common ones because I want you to understand that I know how this feels. And so this is the motivation for this particular episode, is to help you overcome that a little bit, to help you give you some keys so that you can look at and it'll help stimulate ideas, generate new thoughts and posts and content, and make that easier for you. And when you do that, you guys, the results are phenomenal. It obviously depends on practice per practice. I'm not going to tout that, hey, I'm not naive enough to say that, hey, if you have 0 followers and you start doing this, overnight you're going to have 1,000 followers or 200 followers. That's not how social media works. It's like a lot of things. You build on it little at a time. You're building the foundation and then it increases and then you start to build momentum. And once you get momentum, then it can go faster, right? But it takes time to do that. And so I want to be clear about that because some people think, oh, I'm going to go viral overnight with this really cool post, and it doesn't happen. So reality check. But it's what's so cool about social media is that it allows for a greater amount of dialogue and conversation between you and your patients. It helps you to get to know them better and establish and fortify that relationship. And there's so many other benefits too, but those are one of the primary things that I see. And the main driver of why I think it's so important and so critical to be engaged in social media is because of that relationship, you guys. It allows you to maintain those patients more often. It can build, I've talked about this before, but you're really trying to build a fence around your patient base because they're constantly being wooed away by the competition. We know that. There's there's a dental practice on every corner. It feels like that. And there's just so much competition out there that you need to be taking measures to protect and strengthen and reinforce that relationship. Otherwise, you run the risk of losing them. Plus, once that relationship is built and established and you continue to nurture that, it's going to lead to greater patient referrals. It's going to lead to them feeling more comfortable coming to you and asking questions, and it's just going to be better overall. Okay. But the results, I'm showing a picture right here. And again, download this guide, the 3 keys to killer content, and it'll show some of these examples. But I'm looking at, I've got a post here it's a really neat post. It's a dentist who's, that starts off confessions of a dentist, and it shows him with a big, huge soft drink and a massive grin on his face. So just being personal. We're going to dive into the specifics of why these are working, but it's very personal and personalized, and it's very open and authentic, like we were talking about before. That is the goal, is to be open, to be your natural self on social media. Because a lot of times people, when they get on social media, they mistakenly think that I need to be this person because I'm posting for a business and a practice. And so they tend to narrow who they are or try and fit a particular personality type or mold. And oftentimes the content turns out to be bland. It turns out to be generic. It turns out to be sterile because they're trying to be professional and they're trying to be, all buttoned up and look perfect and everything like that. And that is not as authentic. People don't resonate with that. Okay. So again, I'm going to make a push, download this guide so that you can see what I'm talking about. I'll do my best to describe them, but that's one example. Another one is, it shows a dentist, and he just has this, the big box, iTero, it's just arrived that he'd ordered. And, just rolled this into the office not too long ago. And to be honest, it felt like Christmas had come early. And then he talks about that a little bit. He's got this big grin on his face, very open, candid, super cool post. But you're looking at, 22 comments and 78 likes and hearts and all that stuff. But really the comments is a big 22 comments, and this is an office that does not have thousands of followers, has a couple hundred followers. And so that is tremendous engagement right there. So there's a couple of examples. There's one, talks about favorite restaurant. It just has when you do a post on social media, you can just write a question and pick the background. So that's kind of what this is showing. It's a red background. It says favorite restaurant. And he says, all right, let's have it. What's your favorite restaurant right now? And kind of, pings back and forth between different patients. And again, 17 comments. And for an office that has just over 200 followers, that's pretty stellar, right? 17 comments. And again, it's that interaction. It's that dialogue. It allows you to find common interests, allows you to, if you're if you like to joke, it's a good place to banter a little bit and go back and forth. And it can be really, really dynamic that way. So there's a couple of results. And again, what does that do for your practice when you start putting something like this together on a consistent basis? What does that do for you as a practice? Well, it builds credibility and trust. We touched on that before and how does it do that? Well, it allows people to understand you as a person, because that's what people really want to know these days. They have their pick of dentists out there because there's so many out there. They can really be selective on who they want to go to and spend their time with. They don't want to go to someone who's a jerk. They don't want to go someone who's rude and who's disrespectful and who's holier than thou. They want to go someone that matches their personality. They can choose. They have that option nowadays. Okay, so that's what this does. It builds trust and credibility. It helps you put the feelers out. It allows patients to even kind of test drive. Okay, who is this that I'm working with? And I think that's so cool. Another thing it does, it keeps your practice top of mind. Okay, so it helps you remind patients of why they come to you on a regular basis. Okay, so it's as they're going through their feed, they're scrolling through their on their phone, they're looking on Facebook or Instagram, and there you pop up, and you've got a cool experience like the ones we just shared. Or they're, oh yeah, and everything contributes to that. Okay, and if you're not doing that, then you forfeit that opportunity, right? And so a competitor's post might come up and do that and do a better job than you, and it might give ground to that competitor, might plant the seed of, maybe I should consider somewhere else. So it keeps your practice top of mind and helps, like I said, it contributes toward building a fence around your patients. Okay. It sparks dialogue. And we mentioned this, I just mentioned this as I was talking about those posts, but it's so cool to hear feedback from patients. What restaurant do you like to go to? I go to Tsunami and I love sushi and this, or, oh, I love Mexican food, and that's super cool, because then it gives you insight and ammo, to go back and maybe you post content about that and you tag that person, hey, Amy, just went to this restaurant that you recommended. Oh, it was incredible. And then it starts that dialogue again. It shows that you're caring, that you really do care what they say, and that you remember enough to to act on that, right? How cool is that? You get tagged. I mean, it's like, that's why we give referrals to people, is because we want to feel good. We want to be the person who knows someone, who knows a guy, or to give a good recommendation. It's the thrill and the satisfaction that we get from people that follow our advice. That's so cool. It's so flattering. So it sparks dialogue, makes people feel good. And how cool would that be? If you had all these patients are like, oh, I love this restaurant, and there's this local restaurant in town. Then you partner with the restaurant to do a giveaway or to reward patients when they come in for a big procedure, when they spend a lot on treatment, or just maybe that's part of your referral program. Isn't that cool? You have all this information now given to you from your patients. Super cool. It also improves SEO. When you're consistent on your social and it's good content, you can actually improve your SEO, which is super cool. We all want to do that. Like, that's everyone. If you asked anyone, how would you like to improve your search engine rankings? Everyone's hand would go straight up in the air. This is a no cost way to do that, as well as improve your presence on the social feeds, but it also improves your overall search engine rankings and optimization. Very, very cool. As we talked about, generates feedback and insight. So if you're, maybe you're posting about a topic, dental insurance is a great one. Great example, because there's so many questions surrounding dental insurance. And so maybe you spark a conversation and it generates feedback from patients that helps you now determine, okay, maybe I should approach dental insurance this way in my practice. Okay, because all these patients are commenting on, oh, I hate this part. I call it and they give me an estimate, and then I get the bill and it's not the same as the estimate, and all these things. So you can train on it. It gives you an idea of things that you can train your team on, educate your patients on, so that you create a better experience in the long run. So cool. So cool. If you could preempt a lot of those questions and those complaints, man, what is that going to do for the patient experience? What is that going to do to improve and generate more referrals? So cool. So cool. This also helps you reach new audiences, you guys. When you do this right, social media, Facebook, Instagram, doesn't matter which one you're on, they like to show posts and content that's engaging. Why? Because it keeps people engaged on their platform. Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook as long as they can, because then they can show you ads and all that stuff. And so when you create content that is engaging, it will often get posted to more people organically without having to spend money. Very cool. Very, very cool. And so that's another great motivation to curate your content, to take time to craft compelling content. And then last one, I already mentioned this one. So allow patients to look inside your practice. And I think that's a super cool one. It's people love to know what to expect. Expectations are a main driver for people. They want things to be consistent. That is why they go to McDonald's. It's not because it has the world's best hamburger or because it's gourmet food or anything like that. It's because they get the same experience every time. Whether you're in San Francisco or whether you're in Seoul, Korea, it is the exact same thing every time, right? So that's what's so cool about social media, is that it allows you to give kind of an insider's look to how your practice operates, and it allows you to share your unique culture. How cool would that be if you've been posting regularly this content that's personal, it's engaging, it's authentic, it's organic, it's everything that you are on social media, so and people can see that, and they can it's like a test drive for them without having to come into the office, and they see, man, this doctor is super cool. Like, look at all the things he's doing in the community. I see he's got kids just like me. They're about my age. He's going to soccer practice. He loves to get out on his side-by-side, or he loves to go surf. I mean, that's my kind of guy. Like, I want to meet this guy. What a cool dude, And so that's what's neat about social media, is it gives the ability to, it provides the insider's look to you as a provider and to your practice and your unique culture. So those are a couple of different benefits. Tremendous benefits, if you ask me. I mean, those are, from a marketing standpoint, building trust, keeping your practice top of mind, sparking dialogue to generate feedback and insight, improving SEO, reach new audience, allow patients to test drive your practice. Those are pretty pretty sweet. That's all I'm going to say. Those are pretty freaking cool. I'll tell you that much. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. I've got a picture right here of Nacho Libre. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. So 3 keys to killer content. Okay, so the first one is to make it yours. Okay, that's key number 1. Key number 2 is to diversify your content. And key number 3 is to tell a story. Okay, so let's jump into these. Key number 1, make it yours. People want to know you. Okay, when you are the one who shows up in your posts, when you are, and I'm saying this as, I think this should be interpreted when I say you in this context, you and your team, specifically the providers, should really show up on this. But I think it's a team effort because it allows you to, when you go at it as a team, you have various team members that are going to bring something different to the table. And so it actually multiplies the amount of content that you can post. And it also potentially multiplies the reach that you can, or the audience that you can reach. So very cool. So that's what I mean by you in this context. But when you show up in your posts as in a normal person, I'm going to say normal in quotation marks, normal person in the sense that you are a real person. You're authentic. Keep going back to that word, but you're authentic in your posts. You start to form a deeper bond with your audience. When you're okay, posting things about your personal life, when you're saying, hey, dropping the kids off to soccer and, I don't know what happened. Maybe you were running late and you felt bad that you picked up your son late from practice. He was upset. And just kind of, you can be open about that, right? You can share that experience and share your mess ups, your mistakes, your failures, and people resonate with that. They like to see that you don't pretend to be a perfect person. Okay. People bond with those that are real. Okay. And so, and as I mentioned before, as you do this and as you do this well, you start to repel those people that are just not a good fit for you. They're just not congruent with how you approach life, how you approach dentistry. Those people will see, I don't want someone like this. That's really not my style. And they're going to go choose someone else. And that's better for everyone. Guys, you gotta realize that's a major point to realize is that's better for everyone. You want them to go somewhere where they are comfortable, where it's a good fit for them. You don't want them to, you don't want to force a square peg into a round hole. Like that's not good because then they have a poor dental experience and oftentimes that patient will, all dentists are the worst, and so they stop. Some of them just stop going to the dentist altogether because they lump all dentists in the same category, and that's not good for anyone. Okay, so that's another reason. Keep it yours, make it yours, make the content personalized to you. It helps people to see you as real, fosters trust, builds that, sparks that dialogue that we talked about. So what does that look like? Okay, so what does that look like in terms of being real? Like I mentioned before, going to soccer games, or let's say that you like to watch movies outside with your kids, or just outside with your spouse, or your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, whatever it is, or maybe you have a secret obsession with Sour Patch Kids. Show up, let your quirks come to the surface. I think that's a great thing to remember is what makes you kind of different. Because we're all weird. Let's get over that right now. Let's put that out there. We're all a little strange and peculiar and funky and abnormal, and let that show up. Like for me, for example, this is kind of a weird one. So when I clip my fingernails, I don't clip them all the way to the edge. I like to tear off that last little part. Isn't that weird? I don't know what it is. As long as I can remember, I've done that, and it's weird. Like when I clip it off to the edge, it just leaves a weird taste in my mouth. So I just, not literal mouth. I don't bite my nails or anything, but I always like to tear that off at the edge. So, that's a total quirky example, right? But that's something that you can post and people will be like, wow, Mark's kind of a weirdo. And that's okay. Like he's just him, and that's what I'm talking about. you don't have to, not everything is going to be, hey, I'm a weird person because I do this, but it's just showing that you are an everyday person, that you're not just a faceless company out there to take people's money. That's what often people default when they start posting on social media. They're like, oh, I'm a business. I need to, dress like a businessman. I need to post like a businesswoman or whatever the case may be, right? I mean, it's just, they get into that mindset, and that's their content reflects that. But instead, it needs to be more like your personal account. What would you post on your personal account? Okay. And to go back to trust was another thing that comes with making it yours. As you share about yourself, it could be quirkiness, it could be your interests and hobbies, it could be the challenges or experiences. Patients begin to relate to you, which leads to that trust. When they can see themselves in your story, that leads to trust. Okay? Or when they see that you have shared interests, whether it's, like I mentioned before, it could be surfing or, an activity like that. It could be art. It could be music. It could be spending time in the community, service, whatever the case may be. Patients they try to identify, inherently we try to identify common ground. Okay, and when they do that, it's easier, that relationship becomes easier to form. And the last one is dialogue. So I've mentioned this a little bit before, but patients feel more comfortable asking questions and expressing concerns when they feel like they can trust you, when they have that relationship. Okay. And what does that do? Okay. So that's cool. Yeah. They can ask more questions and express concerns, but what does that do? Well, it allows you to answer those questions and help them find the right resolution. Because if they're not comfortable asking the questions, they're not likely going to move forward. Because when we have a question, we don't want to take action. If there's all these questions surfacing in our mind, we're not ready to go ahead with treatment. Like, well, why would I, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? You're telling me I need a root canal, and you're telling me all these things. Why? And that's the barrier. But if they're not comfortable asking that question, then they're just going to walk out of the office and be like, forget that. I'm not doing that. But when they have that trust, and when they can feel comfortable expressing themselves that way, they're going to come to you, and you will have the perfect opportunity to allay those fears, to put them to rest, and be like, oh, I totally get that. Yeah, I'm so glad you asked me. I'm sorry I didn't explain that. Here, let me go. Let's talk about that. And then you dive into, okay, these are the reasons why I would recommend it. Here's what's going to happen if you don't go through with this treatment. And I just want to make you aware so you can make the best decision possible. That sort of thing. That's what it does. So an example of this is, so I actually posted this from my personal account because, again, I wanted to make the point that you need to switch your mindset when you're posting for your practice. It needs to be content that you would post on your personal account. And there's going to be some times when it's, dental specific, and things like that. And that's fine. That's totally great. You need to include that in there. But more often than not, people don't make it as personal as it should be. So here's an example. Let me get back to this example. So it's one that I posted a year ago or so. I can't remember. Oh, here it is. Yeah, May 24th, 2019. So I didn't even have a picture or two. That's a big no-no. You should always include an image or multiple images, and we'll talk about that later. But this didn't have one. I just posted words. I said, question, what books would you say are must-reads for your kids before they grow up and leave the house? Allie and I are creating a list, and I'd like to hear from you. Smiley face. And just that, something simple. And I had 133 comments. 133 comments. Like, it was crazy. They were just boom, 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 and it was super cool. I got all these great recommendations for books to read, some that were way out there that I never thought of, and then a lot that we've read. But again, it's cool. It sparks that dialogue, and it allows people to see, oh man, Mark and Ellie, they like to read to their kids. Like, that's cool. That's what we do, And so it's just really, really neat. But you look at that engagement, like, that's, man, what would that do for your practice? You get 133 comments. Like, that is some killer dialogue, killer feedback from patients. Super, super cool. And in this case, with this particular example, it asks for input. Okay, people feel honored when you ask their opinion about something. Okay, it makes them feel valued. So that's another great tip on making it personal, making it yours. But this is, yeah, you'll have to grab the download so you can see this. But it's a super easy one. If I were to do this again, I would I'd do a couple of pictures of us, reading, because we do like to read to the girls. Our kids are still fairly young, 12 and younger. So I'd take a couple of pictures of us reading, me or Allie reading to the kids, and maybe a couple of the books, maybe a stack of the books that we've read so far. That'd be a cool one, right? And post those. And that would make this even more engaging, in my opinion. So there's a great example. So that's key number 1, make it yours. Okay. Key number 2, diversify your content. Okay. So this is one that is a big one. Yeah. Let's just put it that way. This is a major component. Oftentimes I see that, so there will be some, and this typically, when this happens is because people will sign up for a service that provides social media content that's done for you. You don't have to think about it. And it's straight dental content. You guys, and everything is, 6 tips on how to brush your teeth. And, here's what we look at in a hygiene appointment. And you know what I'm saying? And you could spot those posts from a mile away. And you can pull up a lot of practices in their social media, and that's what you're going to see, because people feel, I need to be posting something, and they get into that mindset, like I talked about before. Well, I'm professional. Let's do something very polished and looking really sharp, and so they fall into that trap. But as we've seen, you get crickets on that content because it's not personal. It's not authentic, right? I mean, it's canned content. It's pre-prepared, and I know it means well. It really does mean well, but it just doesn't work that well. So here's key number 2 is to diversify your content. Mix it up. Vary your topics, hobbies, personal interests, personal experiences, funny things that have happened to you, throughout the day. Like, that's a great thing to remember, is just, whoa, dude, so there's one here locally in Utah where this guy was running early morning up on the trails in the canyons, and you might have seen this on social media, went viral, but he came across some cougar cubs. He's like, whoa, he's filming it, and he's keeping his distance, but then all of a sudden mama bear or mama cougar shows up, and it gets crazy. Like, all of a sudden, and he's backing away, and he's cussing, and he's freaking out, and rightfully so. I mean, we'd all be doing this exact same thing in a situation, but he's backing up, and the cougar is like on the prowl and will like lunge at him every time. And he's just, and as you're watching it, your heart's like coming out of your chest, like, like, yeah, and you're just like that, just hoping that things turn out well. And of course it does, because he's sharing the story. But man, I mean, that's a personal experience like that. That's bomber, I mean, that's a super cool. And not everyone has those type of experiences, but just stuff when you're out doing, maybe you go out for runs, maybe you go for hikes. I'll go for hikes sometimes, and I'll come across moose, or come across, I saw a bobcat once, and just things like that. Or maybe it's just funny things that happen to your kids do. There's a great post from one of our clients who showed his wife doing, she was pretending she was, I think, Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. And so she's trying to make the sound effects as she's doing the lightsaber. And it's just so funny. She's just, and that he's just, cracking up, and she's trying to get through this. It's so awesome. But just things like that, I mean, you show insights into your family life, why you love what you do. Another great topic, highlighting patience. Oh, that's a tremendous topic to show, hey, you got to check out this patient. This patient has a little bakery. She does these custom cakes, and they're just incredible, where you tout your patient and what they're doing, Maybe the patient's involved in service in the community, or maybe the patient is helping kids in school or something like that. That would be awesome to highlight. You can show off your team, praising your team. That you can dive into what they're doing, what they do around the office, what you love about them, their birthdays, their celebrations, their anniversaries, their kids' accomplishments, your community involvement. Do you help out in the community? Do you support the local baseball team, or and love to get out there and watch their games? Those are great. That's a great list of topics that you can dive into. But I want you to think about, when you're putting this together, think about why most people hop on Facebook or Instagram. Okay. Are they looking for, oh man, I should go check Facebook to see what really happens in a hygiene appointment? You typically not. And sometimes you can hook them in with an interesting fact or a tip or things like that. Sometimes you will get people that come across that post and will click on it. But more often than not, people are jumping on social media because they are looking for entertainment. Why do you get on social media? Honestly, answer that question. My guess is I want to be entertained. You might not put it in those terms, but that's what it is when you boil it down. You're like, I want to see what my friends are up to, or let's see what people are ranting on today, and things like that. Okay, so that's another thing to remember as you're putting together your content does it match? Is it I don't want to say you just do this for entertainment's sake, but kinda, you know what I'm saying? And that's why you should use photos. Going back to that point I made earlier, use images. People love to look at pictures. They want to be engaged that way. And so here's another great tip is that use multiple images when you can, because it typically generates more engagement. You want to show more than you tell. Okay, so if you have multiple pictures, oftentimes what happens is that people are going to click on the one because they see the group cluster of images. Like, oh, wow, dude, check out those pictures from Yellowstone. Those are legit, And so they see the bison, and then they see the crater, and it has all these cool colors coming out of it. And maybe there's a grizzly bear over there. And so they're clicking through, and they start one picture and it clicks to the next and the next and the next. And that increases engagement. And that's what you want. Okay. And using video. So you've got the content, you've got the topics, you want to diversify topics, but also diversify your media, so whether it's an image or use a video, you want to mix that up as well. So video is an excellent way to build rapport, since people can see you, you show up personally. They can see how you talk. They can see your body language. They can see how you phrase things and different things like that. We've heard all our lives that 80% of communication is nonverbal. And so they get to see that. They get to see the whole message through your body language as well. So that's another great thing. And I have several episodes on video and the importance of video. So make sure you check those out when you're thinking about doing video. But that's another way to diversify your content and your approach. Okay. So a couple examples here's one from Jamaica Cosmetic Dental Services. They do a tremendous job of putting together really well-crafted content. But here's one they do. It's Tooth Talk Thursday, and it's a video. And it shows Dr. Powell. Dr. Powell's back by popular demand. Today she discusses the importance of dental x-rays and do x-rays matter. And funny enough, importance is spelled wrong, but that's okay. Again, it shows that you're human and it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, get over that mindset. It doesn't need to be perfect. And here she is, she's showing up, and this video is actually 20 minutes long, so that's a good length, not everyone's going to tune into that, of course, but it's diversifying your content. Those people that really do have a question about x-rays, or maybe they think, what the heck, dude, I'm always paying for x-rays. I don't need to pay for x-rays. She can address that issue. Very cool. So for those people that have that question in their mind, they can get an answer, And this had 34 comments, 10 shares. So very engaging post right there. Here's another one by Smiles and Company. And it says, it shows so picture is them, a bunch of team members, 4 team members, and they're outside of their office with 3 firemen. And the caption says, "Who burnt the garlic bread?" And it's this whole post on, oops, we messed up. Someone, caught fire and the fire department had to come but just, sharing that with the world, being okay to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. But here's, have a laugh at our expense. Very cool. How organic is that? How authentic is that? So cool. And here's another one. It shows, how cancer changed our family. And it's a video by this office manager and her daughter, who both work at this practice, and share their experience with cancer. They had, so one of the daughters, so it was the mom who's the office manager, her daughter had cancer. And so it was her daughter and her other daughter's sister. So they were talking about this because they were raising funds for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And this is a campaign that I helped out with. It's super cool. But to hear their story like that, she gets very emotional, obviously, who wouldn't? And it's a very powerful piece of content. Okay, most people aren't going to share that on their social media feed because you're vulnerable. But that's what I'm talking about, showing up as you and diversifying your content. Great examples that are in the download too, so make sure you grab that. Key number 3, tell a story. Okay, humans are hardwired for stories. We love stories. Okay, that's why we read books. That's why we turn on the TV and watch movies. Stories can hold a person's attention for hours and hours and hours, right? That's why we binge watch on Netflix, 8 hours of videos in one day, right? We love the story, okay? We naturally engage in a story when we hear it because it piques your interest and just like a hook, it just literally pulls you in. And you've probably noticed that if you've been to a conference, if you've been in a conference setting, whether that's at a, maybe it's a seminar or maybe it's at church or anything like that. And someone starts, they're speaking, but then they dive into a story. What happens? Heads start to lean up, they're not looking at their phone anymore. They're actually listening, their ears perk up and they're like, well, what's going to happen? That's what stories, that's the power of stories. And what's interesting is that now you see there's the stories feature. We've seen that on Facebook and Instagram. Again, emphasizing the importance of stories. But now that's showing up on Twitter. That's showing up on Pinterest because it's so effective. Okay. Story is the greatest weapon to combat noise because it organizes information in such a way that people are compelled to listen. Isn't that cool? I'm going to read that again. Story is the greatest weapon to combat noise because it organizes information in such a way that people are compelled to listen. And I compare this to the difference between music and noise. Okay, so they both have the same notes, whether it's a random, arbitrary pattern of notes that you'll see in noise, when someone's like, sorry, that was like I don't know what that noise was that I just made, but something like that, versus a strategically composed piece of music. What's the difference? One is disruptive and makes that my face was all, crinkled up. And when I heard that noise, like, it just is kind of repulsive. Whereas the other one can pull you in and it can raise you up to this level of emotion, or it can drop you down and make you feel the pain down there, and that's the power of music. And story is like that for information. Okay, when you can craft a compelling story, it's just like that you can raise people up, you can bring them down, and you can take them any direction. And it holds their attention when it's done right. So that is key number 3. And I love these examples. These are 2 killer examples, you guys. One is from Dr. Jordan Menefee. She was on the podcast earlier, but she's got a Instagram feed called smallteeth_big world. And she's got this one that I just love. Major heart on this one. It's brushing with braces. And it shows her and her sister, Alex, who was also on the show. It shows them in 8th grade going to a school dance. And it shows both like knee deep in braces. And they thought, and she's like, oh my gosh, we thought we were so awesome back then, and just pokes fun of that time, right? And just how, it can be awkward when you have braces, and especially in middle school and or junior high school, whatever it is. And just how funny that is. Again, it's making it yours, but it's telling a story. People are like, what is this picture? It naturally pulls you in, and then you start reading and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I had braces in 8th grade too. Oh, so crazy. And so it engages people, it hooks them right in, and then you can talk about, and that's what's cool, is you can lead them into your point that you want to make, And so she goes on to talk about, it's not over exaggerating to say that the daily oral care routine can get more difficult with braces. And she gives some points about that. But if you strip that post if you strip the picture and the kind of introductory paragraph that links the picture to the story or tells the story, and you just started with, oh, it's not over exaggerating to say that daily oral care routine can get more difficult with braces. Like, that's not, oh my gosh, people might just going to tune that out. But when you have a compelling story and an intro, man, that hooks people right in. Here's another one from SF Dental Nerd. He does a tremendous job of this. He's got this picture, and at first you're like, what is that? It's these two pieces of metal that have like fused together to form kind of an X. And then when you read the caption, it says, these two bullets collided in the Battle of Gallipoli in 1916. The chances of this happening are 1 in a billion. And then he goes on to say, the only thing more unlikely is your dental insurance, in quotes, covering the replacement of a tooth you lost before your planned start date. And that's his hook to talk about dental insurance and one of the challenges of dental insurance. Isn't that cool? Isn't that a cool way to tie in your point? But it's an interesting, utilizing an interesting story and a picture to help drive home your message. That is a major key that you should use not only in social media, but in your interactions with patients, in your email campaigns, in your advertising. It should tell a story. That should be a must. That should be a must. With how much advertising goes on, how many marketing messages that we receive, studies show 5,000 to 8,000 unique advertising messages a day. Stories allow you to cut through the clutter of that. Okay, so that's a good one. So again, download the guide. You're going to have to see these pictures. But as a recap, you guys, I know I'm almost done. But as a recap, 3 keys to killer content. Key number 1, make it yours. Show up authentically and personally. Key number 2, diversify your content. Mix up your topics. And key number 3, tell a story. Add context and details to create a story. Okay, so those are the 3 keys to killer content. Again, if you want the notes from today, download our cheat sheet, 3 keys to killer content, how to dramatically upgrade your social media game. That you can find that on our dentalmarketingsecretspodcast.com website. It's under the show notes for episode 33. And it will also be on our Facebook page, the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast Facebook page. So it'll be on there. Make sure you grab this. It is a tremendous resource that you can copy to help generate ideas and to help you see posts that have worked. Okay, and so you can emulate those. You can modify, you can iterate and do different things there. But that is it for today, you guys. Thank you for joining me on the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast. So excited for you guys to up-level your social media game. It's about time because so many struggle with this. So yeah, grab the guide and we will talk to you guys soon. Make it a great week, you guys.
Did you enjoy this episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast? Head on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And for more proven marketing strategies to grow your practice, visit practicerocket.net.